Hi, this is Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington, and today I have this Taylor T5C2 on the bench. This is an interesting guitar because it has a combination of this mag pickup as well as some acoustic pickups that are strategically placed around the soundboard. This allows you to kind of get more of an acoustic sound, but also to mix it with this more electric guitar sound, so more of like a pure electric guitar to like a acoustic with piezo pickups in it. This is a really cool system, but because it engages with this thing that in a lot of cases would be like a passive pickup with these coil pickups and these piezos, which would normally be sort of an active pickup, we have a complex preamp in here that's kind of allowing these two systems to talk to each other. It's not to say that all coil pickups are necessarily meant to be passive. There are active coil pickups out there to be sure, but you know, in cases like this where you're mixing these piezos which have a different output with these pickups which have another output, you do need to have something that's going to allow these two systems to really integrate and act nicely together. So what we have in here is a complex preamp and two different systems, and that is actually kind of a problem for us today because this guitar has a ground hum issue. The reason that that's a problem is because there are a number of ways that we could go about dealing with ground hum. In some cases, what happens is that you go in and you try to do just a better job at grounding the guitar. So you'll go in and maybe pull out some of the existing grounds and you'll do what's called like a star ground. Or you'll find a component that has like a floating ground and figure out a way to connect that to actual ground. Or you have it in a case where, you know, there's just something going on, loose connection, whatever. You go in there and you kind of play with things until you can get that ground hum to go away. Another way that you can get rid of this ground hum in a lot of cases is to do what's called a bridge ground. This is kind of more simple way to solve this problem in most cases, and it's present in most electric guitars. Basically what a bridge ground is a little wire that's connected with your metal bridge on a electric guitar that then goes to ground. And what that means is that you're kind of the ground. And so when you touch the strings on that guitar, that hum goes away. Ground through the bridge is normally a pretty good solution because normally you have your left hand on the strings. Normally when you're playing the guitar, you're fretting a note or you're doing chords. There's, you know, not really going to be a whole lot of situations in which for a length of time that you're going to have the guitar strummed completely open without your left hand touching the strings. And so usually this is a pretty good way to get rid of the hum while you're playing the guitar. This guitar here presents a problem though with doing that bridge ground. When you look at this bridge is not made of conductive metal. It is kind of a standard acoustic bridge. And when we flip this thing over, you see that it is very much a acoustic bridge. You've got a wood bridge plate down here, and you've got the pins coming through, and you got the balls sitting on that wood bridge plate. What this means is that everything around those strings is wood, so it's not really going to conduct for us in terms of doing a bridge ground. But there is a solution that we can use here that's pretty easy. What I've got here is a Mitchell's plate mate, and what this is a little brass plate that sits over the bridge plate, and this one here, when I drop it on there, fits right over the bridge pins because it's the appropriate spacing. These do come in a variety of spacings for different string spreads on different guitars. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adhering this plate mate to the wood bridge plate that's down here. And because the metal string balls are going to be resting against this brass, it means that we can solder to the back of this a ground that will then connect with the strings. And so basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be kind of forcing this guitar to be able to take a bridge ground. Now I'll talk about these plate mates in a little bit, but want to focus on the electronic repair here first. So because this is brass, we can solder to it. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be soldering a ground wire to this, and we're going to be then taking the other end of that ground wire and we're going to be going to the chassis of this mag pickup. This was determined by the fact that I did an experiment before figuring out how to proceed with this repair, where I plugged the guitar in and you had a hum, and that hum went away when I took an alligator clip and touched it to one of those string balls, touched the string, and then touched the chassis of the pickup. And so that's where we're going to come up with that's where we're going to put that ground. That's going to be our solution. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be figuring out where we can put a string ground on this pickup. We may be able to mechanically connect it by maybe taking out these screws and seeing if there's a place where we can wedge that wire between the chassis, and something. Or we're going to be soldering directly to the pickup cover in this case. One of those solutions will work. We'll figure out a way to connect this to the pickup. That's not actually the major problem here. Usually the issue is going to be connecting it to the strings, which we have this cool solution for. So this is how I'm going to go about this repair here. There are some issues with the plate mate that I'm going to discuss here briefly, but for those of you who are out there with a similar problem like this, figuring out where you can connect those string balls to some kind of ground is a pretty good solution to this kind of hum, because this is not the only guitar out there that has one of these mixed systems in it, and it's probably not the only one that has this buzz. The reason that I wanted to go with this route here is because we have these two systems in here. We have a fairly complex preamp system in here, and I don't super want to get into this preamp and try to figure out one of those other solutions like doing the star ground, messing around with the ground, because there are a whole lot of delicate little semiconductors and things in here that could end up fried if we just go poking around in there and experiment with where we're going to put ground. In the cases of these guitars that are wired up with these little semiconductors, it's really important to keep in mind that those semiconductors really only want a certain amount of voltage going through in a very particular way, and if you hook them up in a different way than they like being hooked up, there's sometimes a little tiny thing in there the size of a grain of sand that will be conducting 9 volts in a way that it doesn't like, and it will fry almost instantly in some cases. And so this is definitely not a case in which we want to go in there and poke around. Even if we could find a way to do this, it would take so long, and it may actually not be possible. So this is the way that I've determined we can solve this problem, and that's why I'm opting for this bridge ground solution. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this plate mate. So obviously this is a little sheet of brass. It sits on top of the bridge plate. The idea behind this thing is that it saves your bridge plate from this issue that happens where these string balls kind of walk themselves through that wood and start creating problems. I've got a video about bridge plates that I'll link down in the description. This isn't the thing that I mess with too much in this shop. And the reason being is that normally when I have those bridge plate issues, I install what's called a bridge plate retainer. Again, link in the description. That's a piece of wood. That's a method of repairing that damage with a piece of wood. It's kind of more traditional, and it's the way that I choose to go here because it's kind of better in some ways. The thing with this is that this provides a metal contact surface below the bridge, meaning that it is going to slightly alter the tone. This means that the anchor point for your strings is no longer wood. It's no longer the wood of the guitar. It's this metal thing that's going to be pressing up against the bridge plate. Now, that will alter the tone of the instrument for a variety of reasons. Number one, you have that contact surface. Number two, you have more weight of a different material that's underneath the bridge. And so that's going to add a little bit of weight that the strings are then going to have to kind of power through and move. Granted, this isn't a super heavy piece of brass. It is pretty thin, but that is a consideration to make when installing one of these. One of the claims that's made on here is that this enhances the sound quality of the guitar. I don't know necessarily that I super agree with that. To me, tone is a very subjective thing, and so oftentimes, when somebody asks me, is this going to be better for my tone or not, I kind of throw my hands up. I'm just like, I don't know. What kind of tone are you shooting for? This thing that you're talking about will change the tone, but I don't know if it's going to be changing it for the worse in your particular case for your particular style of music, for your particular style of playing. So this may be something that you want to do. I recommend kind of doing your own research, look it up, and, see what you think. And the other thing is that these are removable. This is self-adhesive, but it has 3M double stick tape back here, so you could try this out without permanently altering your guitar. You can drop this in, adhere it, and then just kind of call it a day as far as the install goes and play it and see what you think. And if you hate it, you can go in here and remove this, or you can take it into a shop and have them remove it. So we're not actually even permanently altering this guitar in order to do this, but we are putting something in there that will provide a solution. In this case, I'm not so worried about changing the tone of the instrument, partially because, this is an instrument that is played mostly electrically by the player, but also because this is an arch top. This thing already has kind of a lot of weight to the top, and so I don't necessarily think that this is going to super change the tone of this particular guitar. This is a guitar that's shooting for sustain. It's kind of shooting for a different tone than you would have with like a Martin D28 or something like that, where you're, really wanting that heavy attack. This isn't a guitar that's built for that. And so I don't think that adding the weight is going to necessarily change things. The material contact, the fact that the string balls are making contact with the metal versus the wood, that may change the tone. But again, this customer isn't as worried about the acoustic tone of this instrument. We're more worried about the ground hum in this case, and it's driving him crazy. So that's the thing that we're going to focus on with this repair. That's the thing that we're going to fix. And this is a way that you can do this with a guitar that has a wooden bridge like this, but has a sort of electric ground hum. So, try it. Mileage may vary, and it should work for you. Anyway, this has been Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. If you liked this video, I have lots more like this on my channel, so like, subscribe, hit the bell, and all of that good stuff. Link around to your friends, too, because that's how I get most of my viewership. If you feel like dropping me a tip, there's also a link to my Ko-Fi and my Patreon in the description, as well as some other ways that you can drop me a tip. And if you want to have me help you through a project or something, those are good places to contact me for that service. I also have a link down there to my Reverb page where I sell some stuff, and you may be interested in some of the parts and guitars that I have there for sale. I also have a link down there to my website where you can find my contact information, as well as my information on pricing for repair work. There's also a page in my website that is written basically about caring for stringed instruments. And if you are watching this video, I'll bet that you have some stringed instruments that you do care for, and there might be something in there for you. Anyway, this has been Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. Thank you for watching.